worked. Okay. Yeah, so as you guys know, last time I was having some software issues, so I was a little worried that this time it would do it again. I'm going to try and do as little editing as possible, because that seems to be the thing that takes up the most time and deters me from making new videos, is the amount of time I spend editing things. Yeah, I don't like doing that. Mostly because I say the word way too much. Bad habit. Your brain just... Do you know why you say Your brain, it's a filler word. Your brain is trying to find something to put in there. It's not necessarily that everyone says it's just certain people say that, or they say other things. So people have all kinds of filler words. Mine is And I try really hard not to say it a lot because it can get very annoying. I'm actually pretty self-conscious about it. Every time I catch myself saying it, I like mentally punch myself a little bit. I'm like, stop saying that. So one of the two topics that I really wanted to talk about was growing up with undiagnosed high-functioning autism. And I know most people are like, well, high-functioning, no big deal. Like, what do you have to complain about? Okay, yeah, no, I'm high-functioning. Believe me, I'm grateful. But when you are young, because, you know, kids can be mean. When you're young and you're just different enough to stand out, that's all it takes. Not knowing the problem makes it worse because you're not getting any help. You're not doing any of the therapies. You're not doing any of the things that autistic children are supposed to do to help them manage their condition, especially high-functioning ones. You know, with the right kind of therapies and routines and practices, high-functioning autistics do really, really well in the world. But you have to know it's wrong. And that was one of the big problems, is that, you know, my mother and my family and my doctors and my teachers and my peers all just assumed I was just quirky, which, let's face it, I am. But it was more than that. There I go again with the ums. Stop it with the ums, Izzy. One of the biggest problems I think I faced was touching. That was the one that kind of singled me out the most sometimes. Well, I guess it really depends, but it was a big issue because there were times where you would have to like shake hands, or when you were working or together with other students on projects or playing together even, if somebody touched me, I like had full on freak out mode. I was like, don't touch me. And no poking. Don't poke me either. Because, you know, when someone pokes you to get your attention, I don't know what it is about poking, but don't poke me. I absolutely cannot stand it. Hi, creeper. Don't you dare. Morgan knows, and he still forgets sometimes, because it's not a normal thing. Hi, creeper.
I'm not allowed to poke her.
You are not. No, well, thank you for that. And completely off topic. I lost my train of thought now. Oh, right. So Morgan even knows that this is something I don't like, and he still forgets and does it because it's just normal behavior. Like, it's just something people do, and it takes extra effort to stop and go, oh wait, not normal, doesn't like that, can't really deal with it. And that's a lot to ask of children. You know, it's one of those situations where even if I had been diagnosed, it would have still been difficult. Probably because everyone just started calling me retard. Not that I care. That is... Let's just get this out in the open. That is not a word that offends or bothers me. It's a word. Get the fuck over it. Anyone who knows me knows that I view words as just words. They convey whatever meaning it is that you allow them to convey and want them to convey, and blah, 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 blah. So if I'm like, I'm such a retard, and somebody's like, you shouldn't say that word, it's offensive. I'm like, well, it's not offensive to me, and I'm the one using it, and I'm the one using it against myself. So if me saying a word about myself to myself offends you, you are probably the one with the problem. Just saying. Anyway. So there are a lot of things that I am bad at. I am bad at metaphors. I'm terrible at metaphors. This made English class interesting because I had a college level reading comprehension in the first grade, but I was awful with things like metaphors, allegory, etc., etc., etc. Hi, little goose, do you need attention? She is such a needy little puppy. Okay, go on, needy puppy. Do not chew on my sweater. You do not chew on Batman.
I am the knight.
I am the knight. Wait, I need a mug. You do not understand. No, okay, sorry. Anyway, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So, people would use allegory in books that they wrote. One of the biggest examples I can think of would be, was it Fisherman in the Sea? Is that the book?
Asking the wrong person.
Fuck! I think it's called The Fisherman in the Sea. Didn't you read that in high school?
Probably.
Oh god, he's useless.
Hell no.
The allegory throughout the whole book was supposed to be like Christianity or something. I don't know. Our English teacher had us read it. I read it, and I was like, hey, that was a pretty boring book. And then our teacher gave us this quiz, and, you know, she asked us to explain all the Christian allegory, and I'm sitting there going, wait, what part of this book had anything to do with Christianity? I had no clue what the hell this woman was talking about, and I sat there staring at this quiz going, where am I and what has just happened? I'm like, I'm pretty sure this book was about a man in the sea. Did we read the wrong book? And I actually got up and, like, about 10 minutes into the quiz after, like, puzzling over this. I'm terrified because I'm really bad at talking to people. And I go up to the teacher and I'm like, can I ask a question? She goes, well, the quiz is going on. I'm like, yeah, I know it's about the quiz. And she's like, okay. I was like, did I read the wrong book? And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I read a book about a guy in a boat on the sea. She goes, yeah, Fisherman in the Sea. And I'm like, I'm very confused. Needless to say, I bombed that quiz. And I still, to this day, have a really, really hard time with metaphors. I am sometimes too literal, even to this day, but as a kid, it was really bad. I was extremely literal as a kid, and it wasn't that I was gullible by any means, but I was very literal. So somebody would make a statement like, I have no examples off the top of my head. Awesome! But they would make an exaggeration or example, and I'd be like, how did you do that? And it's not that I was gullible. I was just literally really confused on how somebody managed that. I'm like, really? How? I don't think I believe you. Can you explain to me how that's possible? And they're like, it's a metaphor. Or it's an exaggeration. Or it's... And I would be sitting there like, oh. I didn't grasp sarcasm for a long time. My brother had a lot of fun with that when I was little. He taught me everything I know about sarcasm and being a jackass to people. No. So, sarcasm was a big part of my life because of my brother, who is pretty much 99% sarcasm. It's pretty accurate. And when I was really little, I didn't get it. And when I mean really little, I mean elementary school. So, I did not understand it. And he would say something sarcastically like, yeah, I'm totally gonna give you my cookie. And I'd be like, sweet! And he'd be like, I'm not giving you my cookie. And I'm like, oh, but you just said you were. He's being sarcastic. What the fuck is sarcasm? One of the things is, well, I guess maybe I should talk a little bit about, like, how my autism affects me. I have a difficult time understanding things like vocal tone and body language. So, when I was in school, elementary school, junior high, and high school, one of the biggest problems I had was understanding when somebody didn't like me or was aggressive toward me. I would have people use sarcasm and be like, oh yeah, you're totally cool. I think you're awesome. And I'd be like, oh, that's really nice of you. Thanks. You're pretty cool too. We should be friends. And they're like, literally. I mean, that is a thing that happened on a regular basis. And I'd be like, what the fuck just happened? Where did I go wrong? And this boggled my mind to no end. I had no fucking clue what was happening. To me, everyone seemed like irrational, crazy people. Normal people, to me, as an autistic, seem psychotic. Your choices, your actions, your words, none of them make any sense. You say one thing and then do another. So, I have no idea what's going on here. There we go. Sorry. Your words, your actions, and all of that just doesn't make any sense to me. Everything you do either has no basis in logic or completely contradicts what you just said. So, like, I have seen people say, oh, I really want to do this. And then they turn around and do the exact opposite. And I'm like, I'm not following your train of thought here. And then I've seen people who complain about something. Oh, they will complain about something. Well, I really hate it when this, and this. And I'll be like, well, there's a pretty easy way to fix that. You could just do this, and this. Oh, well, that sounds like too much work. Or, oh, I don't want to do that. Or, oh, that wouldn't work for me. And as I got older, I realized people just like to complain. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. I can dig it. And I realized that people often act in a way contrary to what they say. And people often make very illogical decisions. Things I still don't understand to this day. I have gotten a lot better. I get a lot of metaphors, some of them. I totally get sarcasm when it's not in text. Stupid text. Text sarcasm. Screw you people who use text sarcasm without any emoticons. I'm talking to you. And what this resulted in was actually a lot of bullying. I was an easy target because people could have a laugh at me and I wouldn't know that they were really laughing at me. I didn't understand. So people would make a joke that I didn't get because I didn't get jokes. And then they all start laughing and I'm like, ha ha ha, whatever that was must have been very funny because everyone else is laughing. I don't understand what's going on. And then I'd get beat up. So not a lot of fun. And this actually persisted all the way through high school because it wasn't until I was around 15 years old that I started to realize I'm more than just quirky and a little weird and, whatever else you want to call me. I was like, there's more to this. Like, there is something wrong. And I thought about it. I didn't put too much thought into it, though. And I just was kind of like, whatever. And what ended up happening is I actually wound up talking to a couple friends online who were high-functioning autistic, and we were relating stories and how much we had in common, and I started noticing a pattern. I was like, I have that same problem. I do that same thing. Like, well, and they're like, have you ever been tested for autism? I'm like, I'm not autistic. And they're like, no, there's different forms of autism. There's varying levels. And I was like, huh? I didn't know that there was such a thing as high-functioning autism. I thought there was just autism, which I realize is a spectrum disorder before you get on my ass about it. With autism, it's not that you are cut off from the world. It's not that you are necessarily cut off from the world. It's not that you can't feel emotions, that you're like a logical machine. It's that you don't know how to process those emotions. You don't know how to express yourself in a way that makes sense to other people. You don't know how to communicate, really. It's kind of like being locked in your own little world, but you don't want to be. At least for me, it was. I'm not that bad. And so my friends were explaining to me, like, there's high-functioning autism where you can have some of these problems and have them in a mild way, but it still affects your life, and that you still need to do, like, exercises and therapies to help you deal with them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not autistic. I'm like, whatever. But the more and more I talked to them, the more I realized that this was probably a potentiality. So I decided to do more research. I started looking things up online, reading all about autism all day long, every day, and I actually wound up reading a book that was written by a man who interviewed probably several dozen parents of autistic children. Not severely autistic children, high-functioning autistic children. And that was an interesting insight because there is a really big difference between, like, me with autism and the next person with autism. It's a spectrum disorder. It affects everybody differently. It affects us to varying degrees. And it's really, really hard to be like, oh yeah, we're exactly the same. You might have overlaps. Absolutely. You might have similarities. Definitely. But the book was really eye-opening because, from the parents' perspective, it was a very interesting story. You can talk to people with autism, but we're not really the best necessarily at expressing ourselves or explaining things. We're kind of bad at that. It takes a lot of work and practice. I can't count the number of times I've said something or come close to saying something or whatever, and Morgan's been like, Izzy, that's kind of mean. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not mean. Yeah, it's mean, Izzy. No, it's not. It's just the truth. Yeah, Izzy, sometimes the truth is mean. And that was considered normal for me. And so I remember reading that book and just going, holy shit, I might actually be autistic. I tried to bring it up with my mother, which is a difficult thing to do because my mother loves me. And as with any mother, they want their babies to be okay. So, of course, she didn't want to think about the possibility that her daughter is autistic. And also because people don't want to be paranoid or hypochondriacs. Nobody wants to be a hypochondriac. So she was like, no, you're not autistic, you're fine. And I let it go for a little while. But after that, I started reading more about it, doing more research online, trying to find more information. And I realized I was probably autistic. So I started doing the exercises and reading, what can I do to fit in more? How can I improve my social skills? How can I improve the way I cope with my emotions? Because one of my biggest problems was my temper. I didn't know how to control my temper at all. I had no idea. My frustration, let me explain. When I got frustrated, it was not just being frustrated. It was white hot rage. I remember sitting in class trying to figure out a math problem. And I was getting frustrated because I didn't understand it. I was so frustrated, I wanted to break something, anything at all. I was trying to find something I could break and not get in trouble for because I absolutely 100% had to destroy something or I was going to scream. And I literally felt like that. I felt like I was going to claw out my own throat if I didn't scream or break something. It was it's an overwhelming feeling. I say it was, but it is. I still feel that way sometimes. I still sometimes get to that point where I don't know what else to do other than, bang my fists against a wall or just absolutely just full on scream because there's no other way to cope with that emotion for me. And when I started talking about it, one of the things that I was told by some of my autistic friends was emotional management is the hardest part because everything gets through. It's like being a raw nerve. When you're happy, you're really happy. And when you're sad, you're really sad. And when you're mad, you're really fucking angry. So I don't do anything in halves. When I play The Sims, the running joke is that I have the excitable streak. And I know that that's true. I do. I'm very excitable. I'm extremely emotive. But that sucks when you're a kid. Especially when you're a teenager. That sucks even worse. Because you're not supposed to get excited about things as a teenager, or at least you weren't when I was a teenager. You're supposed to be like, yeah, that's cool. No big deal. Yeah, I just wasn't like that. I was like, oh my god, it's so awesome! No, I really do that. Don't laugh. Stop it. Stop laughing. All I ever wanted was to just fit in, just a little. I didn't want to be like every other Tom, Dick, and Harry at the same time, but I just wanted to be a little bit more normal, just a little bit, so that I didn't have to work so goddamn hard to get through the day. I wanted to get through my day without getting harassed every step. I understand that people get bullied in school. That's fairly normal. And no, it shouldn't be, but let's face it, that's part of life. People are going to be mean to you. But there's a difference between somebody being rude and mean and somebody bullying you. There is a very big difference. Some people are jackasses. That is just a fact of life. People are going to always be jackasses. I can actually write most of that off these days. But this was people going out of their way to try and ruin my life. Ruin my day, ruin my week, ruin my month, ruin my year. I almost dropped out of high school because of all the shit going on. And it's still hard. Statistically speaking, women with high-functioning autism do better in relationships than men because we tend to be more logical than our other female counterparts, which men appreciate. We tend to be more blunt, which men appreciate. And we tend to be much easier to read as far as our emotions go, which men appreciate. The problem is that men who have high-functioning autism tend to do worse because women don't want you to be blunt and kind of distant, So it's kind of unfair. Gender stereotypes are fun. But even for, women with autism, things like personal relationships, family, and friends are really difficult. Because on the surface, if somebody just walks up and meets me, I seem fairly normal. I do okay. I pass off as a perfectly normal person. But the more they get to know me and the more time they spend with me, the more they start to realize there is something a little off about you. Which is why, generally speaking, very quickly after meeting somebody, I will generally tell them, by the way, I'm autistic, so if I say something a little quirky, give me the benefit of the doubt and ask me what I mean. Because I have a tendency to sometimes say things that come off as extremely rude. And I don't mean for them to. Not at all. To me, that's just, oh, I say this because it's true. Truth isn't always nice. And I don't always think before I speak. So I do kind of ask people to, have some patience with me, have a little understanding. And if I say something that you think I'm insulting you, ask me. Be like, Izzy, what did you mean by that? Are you trying to say that and I'd be like, no. I mean this. And then I can explain my thought process. And really, that makes friendships really hard. Bye. It makes friendships hard. My best friend in high school came to school in new jeans one day, and she was like, don't these jeans make my ass look great? I'm like, you have the flattest, squarest ass in the universe. There isn't a pair of jeans that's going to make that look good. And I wasn't trying to be mean. Like, I did not say this with the intent of, belittling her or hurting her feelings. I was just explaining why the jeans weren't going to help her and why she shouldn't give a fuck about the stupid jeans. Of course, that's not how that went over. Not even a little. Needless to say, she was kind of pissed at me. Not that I can blame her, but I just literally didn't understand that that's not something that you can say to somebody. I didn't get it. Now, of course, I'm a lot older, I have a lot more experience, and I have learned a thing or two. The fact is, I am not a very good friend, no matter how hard I try to be, simply because there is an element there that I am lacking. It's not that I don't want to be empathetic, it's that I sometimes have a hard time being empathetic. People will come to me and complain about something. I had a friend in high school who constantly had something to complain about. Constantly. And I would be like, well, you could do this, or this. And she'd be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then she wouldn't. And the next day she'd be complaining about the same thing. And I'm like, you just like to bitch. The problem is that I'm not the kind of person who can really deal with that. I am a doer. If I see a problem, I want to fix it. If I can't fix it, I just get over it, There are times where I want to just bitch. Everybody does. That's totally okay. I'm not saying that it's not okay to bitch. But this is like somebody who did it every day. Holy shit, I'm in fear of my life. Puppies, can we go in another room? Thank you. But, she literally just was an everyday event. Oh, this is going to take forever to edit. This was an everyday event for her, and it was almost ritualistic. This is the kind of person who either has serious insecurities and needs to complain to be therefore validated by other people, or has such a boring life that to spice it up, she finds things to complain about. Some people are just that way. You know what? And whatever, they can do that. But I'm not very good at being their friend because after a while I run out of sympathy. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't care anymore. Like, my caring level for your bullshit problems is about this. And then I'm really bad with big problems. Like you come to me crying and it's the end of the world and I'm just like, I have no idea what to do or say or think. And I'm sitting there awkwardly staring at my friend who's sitting there crying, and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? What the fuck do I do? Because what do you say? There are so many situations where somebody... There are so many situations where somebody can have a problem that you can't fix. Like, if my friend's mom dies, there's nothing I can do or say that is going to make my friend feel better. But you're expected to say something. And I'm just like... I got nothing. I got a whole crap ton of nothing right now. I have absolutely nothing useful to say. Nothing I say is going to bring my friend's mom back. Nothing I say is going to make her stop crying. Nothing I say is going to make the situation better. There are sometimes situations that people come into that nothing you say or do is going to fix the problem. And I'm a very logical person. So when they kind of push me to say something, I'm like, well, at least she's not in pain? I tend to try and find not necessarily the silver lining, but like I tend to be very pragmatic about it, and that's not what people want when they want sympathy. So I'm very bad at sympathy. And it's not that I don't feel bad. I feel awful. I feel awful for my friend, and I would love nothing more than for them to take their pain away. But you can't. And I have seen people comfort their friends effectively. It is not an art I think I will ever master. Also, did you know that even if I had been diagnosed as as having autism spectrum disorder, I would not have received any public education assistance. It would have all had to have been private therapy, because I am not autistic enough to warrant it. Now, I'm not saying that I should have been in special ed. All I'm saying is like an hour a day or a week even with a counselor to talk about, you know, social skills and learn these things would have been kind of nice. But the other issue is that even if I was autistic enough to warrant special ed and assistance from the government and education system, by the time I turned 18, it would have all stopped. One of the biggest problems with autism right now is that there is very little assistance for adult autistics. One of the things with autism is routine. It's one of the reasons I am such a mess. I'm terrible with routine. The best thing an autistic person can do is have a routine, a set routine of everything they're going to do every day. Blah, 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 blah. Wake up same time, eat breakfast at the same time, eat lunch at the same time, eat dinner at the same time, go to bed at the same time. And I know that sounds awful to most people, but for us, that structure is really good. It's really important. It's healthy. And I didn't know that. So when you turn 18, you lose all this assistance for autistic kids because nobody gives a fuck about adults. So screw those guys. We gotta help the children. Well, you gotta help the adults too. Children grow up to be adults, guys. So you take children who've had this structure their whole lives, and that structure is suddenly just ripped out from underneath them. They have nothing. It's all gone. The therapy, the behavioral aids, the speech therapy, like all of this stuff is just gone. And then they expect these people to become functioning members of society and get confused when they don't. Government at its finest. You gotta love it. Could it be worse? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. This is not me saying, like, poor, pitiful me, I'm autistic and everything's baloney. No. This is me sharing my experiences, talking about things that bother me, frustrate me, and the things I went through. And the thing is, you can put two people with the exact same situation, and they will react totally differently. You know, I would not be who I am. I would not be doing the things that I do. I would not be me had I not been through the things that I went through. So I wouldn't change any of it. Not at all. But I would like to take the experiences that I have and hopefully make a difference with them. And understand, too, that autism is different for every person. My experiences, my symptoms, my autistic world are not at all going to be like someone else's. Someone else who's autistic could be like, not at all the same. Completely different. And that's okay, because that's just the way it is. Seriously, this dog is on her back more often than the streetwalker. What?
She's lazy.
She's not lazy. She's just like giving me all the belly rubs.
Yeah. Anna's just here hiding behind.
Did you have to give me a doggy kiss? Was that necessary? Oh. You're fast. Stop it. Okay.
There's going to be a little more editing than I planned.
But you are definitely going... River? Really? The squeaky toy? Right now.
Would you like me to take the squeaky toy away?
She's having so much fun. Maybe just in another room.
River, come here. River, heel. River, heel.
Oh, what a good girl.
Heel.
I don't... River? Really? I don't really do... River? She just pokes up in the corner of my screen. To go do a pedicure, manicure. Pedicure,